So even though this free agent class is not the greatest, there's still some names that I want us to keep a look for because the Dolphins are now with $30 million in cap space. Welcome back, everybody. We're going to be talking about this free agent class. There's some names, but we have to understand that this free agent class is probably one of the weakest in probably a pretty good amount of time. Like Trey Smith just got signed. I think, who else was it? Well, it looks like PFF hasn't updated anything, so we'll see what it is. But yeah, I mean, there's just not a lot of players. We'll focus on a couple of the players that we need to focus on. So the first one obviously will be guards, and the thing is now that we have $30 million in cap space, Isaiah Wynn and Robert Jones need to be re-signed, so that we have the depth back there. And what you need to do is you need to get a player that honestly can just stay on the field. I think that's probably the main goal right now. So you have players like Tevin Jenkins and, Will Freeze is another one that I think would be a pretty decent pickup, but you got to spend some money on guard. I know a lot of people are saying about Jonathan Allen from the Redskins. I think personally, this is what is going to implicate what you're going to do in the draft, because right now who you pick up is basically going to tell you what you need to get in the draft. So with the guards, my personal opinion, Kevin Zeitler, James Daniels, and maybe a Mekhi Becton, getting those guys. The thing is with Zeitler and James Daniels, I'm not sure if Zeitler is going to go back to the Lions, but these guys, they're going to be cheaper. Zeitler's older, James Daniels was injured, but they both had solid years. And the thing is that when you get these guys for cheaper contracts, you can then have more bodies. And you're not really taking a risk. James Daniels played very good when he was in this last year. Kevin Zeitler's played good his whole entire career, probably one of his best years this last year. When you go for a Tevin Jenkins or a Will Freeze, the problem is that you're going to be spending a lot of money on them, and Will Freeze had one good year, and Tevin Jenkins is good, but he's always injured. You don't want to be spending money on guys like that could possibly get injured. You want to be spending money like James Daniels is one of those guys that you're not spending a lot of money, even though he's injury prone. But if he does play, he's like a Jonnu Smith, where basically if he does play and plays up to the level that he did last year when he was in, you gotta steal in free agency. Kevin Zeitler is another one of those that you have to steal. Mekhi Becton, he's a little iffy because he's going to ask for a lot, and again, he only had one good year. So that's what I'm kind of seeing here is with guards, you want to definitely get a couple of players because you're probably going to get a couple players in the draft. I don't see Chris Greer. I know everyone in the comment is sitting there saying that he's not going to draft offensive linemen. He's drafted Larry Tunsil. He drafted Robert Hunt. He drafted Austin Jackson. He does draft offensive linemen. And the way that they're going with what Mike is saying in the interviews, they're going for offensive linemen. He's been saying it over and over again. So I don't see us leaving the draft with less than 2 offensive linemen. I think at least 2, probably more. But it also thinking 2 or 3 in free agency now that we have this freed up. And first off, honestly, he's never going to hear this, but shout out to Bradley Chubb for being an actual man. A lot of the athletes, which I totally get, you want to make money, but a lot of athletes would have used this to make more money in this situation. But Bradley Chubb, being a man, understands that we paid a lot for him. We paid a first-round pick for him, and really hasn't been the person that we thought he was going to be. So to take a pay cut like that and give us some money, it's fire thing. The next one's going to be safety. And, this is where this free agent class is kind of like, because Javon Holland is one of the best players in this draft. And honestly, I'm not paying Javon Holland $20 million a year. I don't see that. So you got Hufanga, which actually, I don't know why I said the guy is his brother in the draft. I don't know why I keep thinking that this guy's his brother. Hufanga is another good one, solid safety. He had an off year, but this whole year for the 49ers was not great. Justin Reed, you want to get some of these guys. Trevon Moehrig from the Raiders. You want to get a couple players. Again, I think in the draft, we are definitely I don't see us not drafting a safety, or at least 2. I would say at least one, possibly two. There's a lot of Makuba and guy from South Carolina. There's a lot of safeties in this draft that you can get in like the third round that would be starting material, but you want to at least have somebody that's not a Poyer that can come in and do a feasible job. The way that our defense is going to be run, if we get the players that we need, you're not really going to need crazy safeties. You're kind of going to need them to just be a safety, because we have Jalen Ramsey. We'll see what we do at corner, but you're not going to need someone crazy. You're not going to need a big name player. So again, Hufanga and Justin Reed are some people. Harrison Smith is way too old, but if you want to have that stopgap, for this season, you get someone for cheap that is just that stopgap that can give you that presence of Harrison Smith has been a baller since he got in the league, from, I forgot what college he's from. Damn, totally forgot. Is it Notre Dame? I think it's Notre Dame that he's from. Let me know in the comments. But yeah, he's been a baller. Trayvon Moehrig is pretty good. Justin Simmons is another possibility. You have a lot of safeties that you can get in for cheap and fill in and basically do the same thing Javon Holland did last year instead of paying him $20 million. And then we'll go to the cornerbacks, because we're going to need a cornerback. Cam Smith has not performed well, and Cater Cole, we'll see what he does. We're probably going to sign him back, but Cater on the other side just hasn't been good for the past couple years. So you need to get somebody at corner. Rasul Douglas is a pretty decent name that has been playing great for the Bills, and he played fantastic for the Packers. Byron Murphy is another one. I don't want to get a Charvarius Ward or a DJ Reed just because these guys are going to cost a lot of money, and if we do things right this year, we're going to have a much better pass rush. Because like I said, Jalen Phillips is coming back. Bradley Chubb is good to go. Zach Sealer's on the line. We have Chop. Just need another defensive tackle, which, we'll get to that in a second. But you're not going to need like crazy corners, because they're not going to need to stay on the person for that long if we have the type of setup that I'm thinking. So Byron Murphy, Asante Samuel Jr. is another one. Mike Hilton. Carlton Davis is great, but he's going to cost a lot of money. So those are the players that you want to look out for that. And now, defensive tackles. I think it's I'm going to be real with you. Because the free agent class is not great. You can get a couple of players in order to fill things out. But I think Jonathan Allen is a name that you can possibly put out there to try and get it so that this defensive line transforms from being one of the worst this last year to having one of the best defensive lines. Because if you get Jonathan Allen with a Zach Sealer, he's the one big name guy. Because when you look at the defensive tackles, Milton Williams, he's all right. And he might be a product of Philadelphia. Levi Owuzurike, he's pretty good, but he's just going to be a space eater. He's another name that I could possibly put on there. But if you want to make a splash and really just solidify this defensive line as you're solidifying the offensive line, Jonathan Allen is a name to put out there, man. Because again, you're going to have another solid player that really just, to pin him with Zach Sealer, this defensive line would be ridiculous, and of course there's a risk because you're paying a lot of money for him. But with this free agent class and the way that we're going into this offseason, you kind of want to get somebody like that coming from this again. Typically, Chris Grier does that in free agency. He typically gets the big name players. You want to get someone like that to possibly fill out the role, and the defense will be fine. If we have, a great defensive tackle core with the pass rushers that we have, I think the defense will be fine. You fill out a couple safeties with the draft and this and that, but it's going to be completely different because Anthony Weaver's going to finally have a pass rush to work with. So I think if you do that, your defense is basically good. You just need to get a linebacker and a couple safeties and a corner, and you're good. And then you just focus on the offensive line. Because in all honesty, the offense really doesn't need much besides the offensive line. The tight ends, I get it, but we typically use just Jonnu Smith. The run blocking from a tight end, we can get a big, 6'5", 270-pound blocking tight end in the draft. you typically only need offensive linemen, and typically really only need guards. So you can get some of those in this free agents. I would say get a couple of them, but really focus on getting that defensive line stout, because when we played great defense, we were in every single game, and that's what we need to have. The problem is basically when we face the good teams, not only did they dominate our offensive line, but our defensive line got dominated last year. So the corners were out on islands for 7-8 seconds, and you can't have that coming into this year. So making a splash like that is going to be probably the best possible option that you can have. Having a Jonathan Allen is going to free up a lot of people to get after the quarterback and get the opposing team off the field, because that's something we couldn't do last year. The top teams couldn't get him off the field. We'd have to do all sorts of crazy things instead of just allowing Anthony Weaver to build the defense the way that he wants. And I think if you get that guy, excuse me, you can have a pass rush that you don't have to worry too much about the back end, because you have some players on the back end. You just fill out the safeties, you fill out a corner, and you get probably Terrell Dodson. And then you have a pass rush to be able to alleviate all the problems. And then you just focus on offensive line and getting the top tier offensive linemen that you need, getting a bunch of them, and being able to have this stout offensive line in front of Tua, because that's the main priority. The main priority is having Tua not have to run anymore. Just keeping him in the pocket. That's what we need to have. Finally getting Tua the best offensive line that he's ever had in the league. That's what we need to go for. And I think that's what the Dolphins are going to do. But it's just going to be a quick free agency outline that we're doing today. There's a couple of receivers we could talk about, but I think we get that in the draft. These are the top positions that we need to focus on in free agency in order to make a run. I think a lot of people are down, but I think we can honestly make a run. If we make the right moves, get a little luck, we can have a turnaround season. But let me know down in the comments what you think about this free agency class and who you would like to get. And always remember to like and subscribe so that more people can see these videos. Love you all. Fins up, baby. Peace.